career workshops. Sorry, give me a second. Okay, anyway, so welcome everyone to our virtual career workshops about the medical field. So this workshop is hosted by the PCDC Teen Club, and we have our guest speaker, Dr. Empaynado, here with us today.
Hello, everyone. Can everyone hear me okay and see me okay?
Yes.
We're all good? All right. Well, I want to give a virtual hello to everyone, both live and online. Thank you for joining me on this rainy Friday. I was very excited when NAP leadership had approached me to talk about the medical career. And the reason why I appreciate that opportunity, because I wish I had that type of resource when going through deciding what to do with my life. It's a pretty critical decision, and having as much guidance and input and kind of um, research into it before you go into it will help a lot in succeeding. And I think just you being on this type of platform and utilizing the type of resources that you have available, such as this program, you already has taken an amazing step towards your career decision. And so thank you again for allowing me to speak and share my experience with you. I was just telling Lena that my presentation is really a personal experience. I applied to medical school almost 30 years ago. So I don't know whether things have changed, but or medicine tends to be very traditional. So maybe things didn't change, but a lot of this is going to be a perspective, a presentation based on my perspective of how I went through in terms of career choice, choices I made, good and bad, and hopefully you get something out of it. Um, and ultimately, I really want this to be an interactive kind of presentation. So the slideshow is really just a format or a backbone for us to have a more robust conversation in terms of what your questions are. So, but I am gonna share my screen. Is that okay, Lena?
Oh wait, actually, I will first go over like some of the basics about
Oh,
PCDC and the Teen Club, and then I will switch over to
oh,
yours.
absolutely. Just
Yes.
cue me in. Thank you.
No problem. So anyways, but thank you so much for being with us here today. And so if people are online have any question, just comment or just as in a Zoom, or people who are in person, you guys can raise your hands, and then I guess I'll just call you guys. So
Oh,
anyways,
please interrupt me anytime during the presentation. It's more of a backbone presentation. So a lot of the interaction is really on you. Please, interrupt me anytime.
so first, I'll just go over the ground rules. So mute yourself when you're not speaking. Unmute yourself if you want to ask a question or answer any questions. Be an active participant and use the chat or raise hand to speak up with a question. And let us know when you step away. So first, I will start with introducing PCDC, the Philadelphia Chinatown Development Corporation. This is a nonprofit, community-based organization that preserves, protects, promotes Chinatown. And we have several programs, including the housing counseling and family services, the youth program, commercial corridor, neighborhood planning and advocacy, civic engagement, and affordable housing development. So I would say like one of our most popular program is the Teen Club. So it is an out school time program that aims to help those students who come from low income minority families or just youth that needs help with school or just want an environment to make friends, play sports, and just have fun. So we provide SAT prep, college trips, leadership events, and internship for students from grades 7 to 12. Other than SAT prep, we also offer homework help for students who have any like difficulty with school assignments. Students can also attend study hall if they just want like a time to focus on finishing their assignment. So here's our Teen Club school year schedule. And the last day for this schedule is actually this upcoming Monday, June 14th. And after that, we'll have a summer schedule where we only offer SAT prep on Tuesday and Thursday. And then same with our in-person sport activities. The last day for these activities is this upcoming Monday, June 14th. And everything will be resumed once school starts again in the fall. So here's our PCDC events. The first one is the food distribution from 12 p.m. to 3 p.m. where each household can just come get free food if they bring an ID. And we also have the live zone where students can just come and use the Wi-Fi for homework or take classes, or if you can just study, spend the time studying with friends. Next, we also have our vaccination days starting the past Tuesday. So this month for June, every Tuesday we have vaccinations available for youth and adults. And also on the same days, we also have the gym available for students who are vaccinated or just like who are vaccinated at PCDC or who are just vaccinated like at somewhere else like CVS or any other place. Anyway, so we have our guest speaker, Dr. Empaynado here with us today. He's a board certified in general surgery and has been in private practice in South Jersey for the past 15 years. He has previously been recognized by his peers through South Jersey Magazine, New Jersey Monthly, and Healthy Living Magazine with top dog honors in his specialty. So let's give a warm welcome to our main guest speaker here today, Dr. Empaynado.
Hello, everyone. A virtual hello again. And again, thank you for having me. I'm definitely excited to share this time with you and definitely would love to hear questions, comments, whatever would help you navigate a career choice in medicine. And I know part of this program, you probably heard other talks already about different careers and just knowing that you have a resource such as this to help you decide is an amazing opportunity. So again, thank you for having me. So I'm going to share my slide, Lena. Is that okay? Here, let me try it myself here. All right. Can everyone see my slide?
Yes.
Oh, excellent. Okay, hold on. Let me just. All right. So again, hi, good afternoon. My name is Edwin Empaynado. I'm colorectal surgeon in South Jersey, and I was asked to talk to you about my experience with choosing a medical career and how I came about choosing that career. And so I titled my talk "There and Back Again," kind of an allusion to taking a long journey and finding yourself back and reflecting on what you accomplished, which I think once you have completed medical training, started a career, you can look back. A lot of your friends who weren't in the medical career have gone very different directions and have really seemed like they've been working much longer than you have because you've been basically in school for such a long time. So part of this talk really is to kind of reflect on my experience, and it's definitely one of the earliest books I read, chapter books I read as a middle schooler, I believe, is a turn of the century English book or a book by an English author, J.R.R. Tolkien, called The Hobbit. And the second name really was There and Back Again, and that's where that term comes from. It also alludes to the primary character's title of his journal called There and Back Again. And the reason why I bring up this book is because, from what I recall reading it, what I took out of it was a variety of experiences that I thought was consistent to a journey through a medical career. And that includes a long journey, um, episodes where you face significant adversity and challenges. You maintain a certain dedication to a goal, and to achieve that goal, you maintain patience and perseverance despite some of the adversity. Along the way, you met friends, learned to cooperate, and establish teamwork, and was always open to a lifelong learning process, meaning that, I did 20 years of training, 15 years of private practice. I'm still learning every single day. Every patient I meet is brand new and unique, and you got to learn from them every time. So there's certain constant learning concepts and life lessons that you will always run across throughout your whole career. And then, like I said, you could sit back and appreciate these achievements and reflect on them, because you could always learn from them as you move forward. So I don't know how many of you have read this book. I know, you could just cheat and see the movie. I know there's a whole, a movie by uh, that's been out 10, 15 years ago, but it definitely summarizes a lot of what I felt was a journey for my medical career. Just a quick outline of me personally. Again, Ed Empaynado. I wasn't born here. I'm not a first generation. I'm an immigrant, basically. I came here when I was 4 years old. I was born in the Philippines. I moved with my parents to East Orange, New Jersey. That's up in North Jersey, probably 10 miles outside of New York City, back in 1976. Um, we ended up moving more, that was more of an urban area in East Orange. We ended up moving to a more suburban area in central New Jersey, where I grew up and attended public school system and graduated from John P. Stevens High School in Edison, New Jersey. I enrolled in undergraduate studies at Penn State with a focus on biology and pre-medicine, but I also minored in history. More specifically, I minored in military history. So throughout the course of this presentation, you're going to see I pulled some quotes. I like history. I like learning from it. And so I think we could learn a lot from history because it repeats itself. And therefore, I want to share with you some quotes throughout my presentation to help kind of clarify what my thoughts are as I experienced my medical career. Ultimately, I took the MCATs and gained entrance into medical school, which what is now known as Rutgers Medical School. It had several name changes since I graduated. Um, I got accepted into a general surgery internship residency program at Robert Wood Johnson University Hospital, which again is in New Jersey. It's in New Brunswick, New Jersey, part of the Rutgers Medical School system. And beyond general surgery, I subspecialized in an area of intestinal surgery called colon and rectal surgery, where I did an extra year of fellowship with laparoscopic or minimally invasive surgery, which I'll go further detail later. And currently, as Lee had mentioned, I have been in private practice in South Jersey for the past 15 years, where I reside with my family, my two boys, 14 and 9 years old, both of which are Phillies fans. I mean, I'm a Yankee fan, and so I can't get away from that. But that's something we'll have to talk about in a different presentation. So the first quote I want to share with you is from Reverend Martin Luther King, which states, "Faith is taking the first step even when you don't see the whole staircase." What this means to me is that medicine always seems to be, from what you hear, a long commitment and lots of time. You're in school forever. And to undergo this type of journey as a career, there's got to be some level of faith that you're going to persist in it. And despite not really seeing the end point, you're going to be at the very beginning of your training, not even your career, but your training. and the end is not even in sight. There's no light at the end of the tunnel yet, but yet you want to pursue it. And all you hear about, taking a long time is true. It is a long time commitment. A career in medicine, you're basically a professional student for the first 20 years after high school. So if you take into account pre-K to 12th grade, that's about 14 years of education there. You add another 4 years of undergraduate degree, another 4 years of medical school. Then, depending on what type of subspecial or actually general specialty or medical specialty you want to pursue, that internship and residency could take anywhere between an additional 3 to 7 years. Then there's subspecialties among that, which is called a fellowship training that could um, oh, someone had a question about which slide I'm on. Um, which slide are you seeing?
Yes, for us, we're still seeing slide 1. I'm not sure if it should be on other slide or anything.
Oh, you are. Okay. Now how do I share? Let me see. Hold on. Thank you for because I started my screen. You're still on slide 1, huh? Because I advanced. Yeah, you're right. I am on a fourth slide. How come this side is not being shared?
Um,
Let me see here. 1 second. I'm going to stop sharing for 1 second. Let me pick a different. Let me see if this works. All right. Do you see our career
yes.
in medicine slide?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I'm going to back up a little bit. Let me see if this works. If I could back up.
Okay. Yes, now it
So
works.
that's the first slide, right?
Yes.
And I was referring to a book that I had read in middle school called The Hobbit. I'm not sure if a lot of you are familiar with it. I was alluding to some of the what I took out of that book, and if anyone's read it, or you could just go straight to the movie and watch it. It the bullet points kind of uh, are analogous to what I felt was my career in medicine as being a long journey, facing a lot of adversities, challenges, constant dedication to what I was doing, knowing that I would at some point be practicing, constant patience and perseverance, a development of friendship, and the need to work with teams and other people. That's very important. Knowing that you're a constant student, you're forever. You're always learning. You're learning from colleagues. You're learning from patients. There's always life lessons from everyone you meet. And then ultimately an appreciation for what you have achieved and look back on reflection because you could always learn from the past. And so I kind of gave a summary of who I am. Again, Ed Empaynado. I'm an immigrant, born in the Philippines, came in 1976 to North Jersey. East Orange, New Jersey is probably about just under 10 miles outside New York City. Um, I grew up, then we moved to the suburbs of New Jersey, where I attended public school system, graduated from John P. Stevens High School in Edison, New Jersey. Enrolled in Penn State University with a focus in a Bachelor in Science, pre-med. I also had a minor in history. And so I'd kind of warned you already that I was going to put some quotes throughout my presentation because I like history and I think you could learn a lot from history because it tends to repeat itself. So then I attended New Jersey Medical School, which is now called Rutgers Medical School. Also did general surgery in the same institution, health system at Robert Wood Johnson University Hospital in New Brunswick, New Jersey. And I did a subspecialty beyond surgery in intestinal and minimal invasive surgery called colorectal surgery in Lehigh Valley in Allentown, Pennsylvania. And currently, I've been in private practice in South Jersey for the past 15 years, where I live with my wife and my 2 young boys, both of which just graduated lower school and middle school. And so they're going on their next step in their life as well. Um, so the first quote I want to share is the screen still advancing appropriately? Lena? Because everyone see a quote that I have from Reverend Martin Luther King?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. So again, the first quote I want to share with you, and as I share these quotes, I I usually will pause for a little bit. Not that we lost connection, your Wi-Fi is fine, but I like to pause after these quotes to reflect on it yourselves as a moment of silence. Typical Quaker ideology that silence is very powerful. To just sit in silence is very important and be able to reflect. And so, this first quote, faith is taking the first step, even when you don't see the whole staircase. Now, this quote refers to undertaking any challenge and not really knowing what the end lies, what the final result is, but yet still persevering and moving forward. I think that's a very important um, ideal when you start a medical career because all you hear about how long it takes, all the schooling, all the years that you are studying is true. It takes a long time to be trained as a proficient medical doctor. On this slide, it shows you that grade school, if you take that into account, is the first 14 years of your learning, not to take away from nursery school, but again, true learning in the 14 years between pre-K and senior of high school. Undergraduate is another 4 years. Medical school is another 4 years. Then when you start your career choices in medicine, undertaking different types of medical specialties have different lengths of internship and residency terms. So it could be anywhere between an additional 3 to 7 years. Then subspecialties could take another 1 to 3 years. Now, this is exempt of other degrees you may want to pursue. And I have colleagues, friends who have pursued PhDs on top of their MD or DO degrees. They've pursued MBAs, which is a Master of Business Administration, or a Master's of Public Health degrees, which could be another 1 to 2 years beyond the 20 years of just medical training. So definitely a long time commitment. The next quote is from Harold Craxton. He's a professor at the Royal Academy of Music in reference to his music students, where he said, amateurs, referring to musicians, practice until they can get it right, but professionals practice until they can't get it wrong. I might put an extra can't in there, so that's but um, but think about that for a little bit. So to be a proficient medical doctor, you're going to be tested quite a bit because they got to make sure that you know what you're talking about and are very knowledgeable. And there's going to be instances where there's a lot of pressure going on, and you still have to maintain a level of proficiency in your decision making to be able to make right decisions. And so be prepared to take a lot of tests, and more tests. So you all know what the SATs are. They're basically the undergraduate entrance exam. After your 4 years of undergraduate education, you are set up to take the MCATs, which is the medical school entrance exam. I'll go into more details about these later, but maybe Lena might know more about this than I do. But once you're in medical school, you will take what's called the United States Medical Licensing Exam, steps 1, 2, and 3, all of which are required to get a medical license in any state in the United States. So they come in different parts of your medical school learning. Step 1 is taken after the second year of medical school. Step 2 is taken after between the third and fourth years of medical school. And believe it or not, step 3 is taken after medical school, where you're usually in your first year of residency. So you're not out of the woods yet just because you graduate your medical school. If you don't pass step 3 of the licensing exam, you can't get a medical license. So beyond that, once you're in your medical residency, there are board exams to be licensed in your specific medical specialty, like board certified general surgeon, board certified internal medicine, board certified psychologist. Then there's also the ability to subspecialize, which is called a fellowship, and that has its own board exam. And both board exams are broken up both in a written component and an oral component, meaning that it's basically you and a professor sitting in a room and he's asking you questions, Jeopardy style, just shooting off questions about thousands of pages of your textbook that you hope you get the right answers. And that, so both boards exams has both a written and oral component. Then it doesn't end there. Once you've gotten board certification, lifelong, what's called maintenance of your certificate. That means you're tested. Right now, it's every 3 years. You are tested for your continued up-to-date knowledge of your specific medical field. Now, all these tests is in addition to all the other quizzes, unit tests, midterms, final exams that you will experience in undergrad and medical school. So definitely a lot of tests to make sure you're a proficient medical doctor. Now, just want to double check, make sure no one has a question. I think I think we're good. All right. I'm going to move on. Now, this is going to be very specific to me. I went to Penn State University in University Park, Pennsylvania. This is just kind of my experience with my college life. I was a biology major, included specifically, I was a vertebrate physiology major. So if you combine biology with physics, that's basically what I studied. This included more college level courses such as biochemistry, organic chemistry, physiology, anatomy, histology, beyond what you usually see as an AP offering in high school. As I had mentioned before, I minored in history, more specifically military history. Um, and I still tend to read a lot of history-based books, more so than medical books nowadays. So that just continues my interest in history. I did do cardiovascular research in undergraduate. I worked extensively in a physiology lab where I got grants from NASA. I got grants from the Howard Hughes Research Institute to do cardiovascular research. I was mainly involved in diabetes research, retinopathy, nephropathy research, and all desktop models. Nothing clinical. This is all on rat and mouse models. I did not do any clinical research as an undergraduate. But I did get involved in teaching. I do like interacting with students and teaching. I was a teaching assistant in the Department of Anatomy, and I taught histology. And I was also a teaching assistant in the Department of Physiology, where I did uh, general physiology coursework. Extracurricular activities. You can't forget that in general, and I was kind of having this discussion before this talk with Lena, that a lot of times program directors of any residency, fellowship, even medical school like to see an all-around individual. And a lot of times with medicine, there's definitely a science focused interest, but they definitely like to see other interests. I have colleagues who majored in English. I have colleagues who majored in business. And we're also involved in other extracurricular activities. I was very involved in intramural sports in college. I enjoy sports. I watch a lot of NCAA sports, and I was part of the Greek life, but again, it's really, we want to not miss a college experience in a sense. You still have that discipline to be focused. You know what the end goal is, and that's to get into medical school. But please don't ignore other experiences in life, and so that's very important. And a lot of times in interviews, they could they look into that to see what other experiences you had outside of science related experiences. Another quote: A pessimist sees the difficulty in every opportunity. An optimist sees opportunity in every difficulty. This was from Winston Churchill, former Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. And I took this quote because medical school application is very competitive. I know it's competitive when I uh, applied back 30 years ago. I can only imagine it got more competitive as time goes by. And so, just a quick numbers summary of medical school. I put some statistics from 2019, where in that year, just over 53,000 applicants were there to matriculate in just under 22,000 spots. So even though you're well qualified, you could be a very well qualified individual, there were not enough spots for the number of applicants. And just based on that number, you could already see only 40% of the applicants were admitted purely just on availability alone. And that's in 2019. It might have, been different statistics nowadays. And again, that same application year, the median MCAT score was 511 out of 528. Now, the scale of the MCAT is very different from when I did it. I don't think our scoring system was the same with a maximum of 528. But this is just purely a statistical, factual kind of slide or information. There are 155 accredited MD schools, 37 accredited doctorate of osteopathic medicine schools, and 9 accredited doctorate of podiatry programs in the United States. And that's where the 21,000 matriculated students go to one of those programs. Generally, they're a 4-year program where the first 2 years is what's considered basic science. That includes advanced physiology, anatomy, histology, pharmacology, and microbiology. These dive a little bit deeper and more in detail compared to college courses, even 400 level college courses. Then when you go to your clinical years, in your 3rd and 4th years, you start to do general rotations in your 3rd year. The 6 main rotations I went through was pediatrics, obstetrics, general internal medicine, surgery, psychology, and family medicine. And then in your 4th year, you have an opportunity to pick electives that is specific for what your interests are. So throughout the 3rd year rotations, clinical rotations, you might have developed an interest in pediatrics. Therefore, in your 4th year, you put an application to CHOP to do what's called a sub-internship, which is a 4th year student who has maybe an interest or wants to go to CHOP for pediatric residency, and will spend a rotation there, usually a 1-month rotation in their 4th year to get to know the program. Now, remember, as I alluded to before with the testing, in medical school, you got past that crazy licensing exam. Step 1, step 2. So the first 2 years of medical school, this is where you're on top of studying for physiology, anatomy, histology, pharmacology. You got to study for your step 1 of your licensing boards. And then between your 3rd and 4th year, after you've done your whole general rotations in your 3rd year, you have to take step 3 before you go into your 4th year. So definitely a lot of focus, a lot of dedication, a lot of ability to handle adversity, time management. These are all very important skills that is needed in the training to become a doctor. This is just a short list of the variety of medical specialties you can choose from when you start to hone in your interest. It could be anesthesiology, general surgery, gastroenterology, psychiatry. You can see there's quite a bit. And like I said, this is not all of the listed medical specialties available. There's definitely subspecialties that's not listed here. that's within each of these categories, but definitely plenty of medical specialties to choose from that will pique your interest and keep you engaged in that training. The ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in moments of comfort and convenience, but where he stands at times of challenge and controversy. And when I say man, man and woman, obviously, this is just a direct quote from Reverend Martin Luther King in one of his speeches. The reason why I put this quote out is residency is a challenge. Everything you heard about or watched on TV, Grey's Anatomy, all these doctor show, House, or maybe not Scrubs. Scrubs might not be the right accurate depiction of medical residency, but definitely it's all true. That there definitely a lot of long hours, and that has evolved and changed through the years since I trained. But for the most part, medical residency is like applying for a job. Once you finish medical school, you venture out to the real world in a sense. You're still going to be a student, but you're going to be a paid student now. You're going to be a professional student where you actually apply, interview, and actually visit these places of residency and get guided tours, just like a normal job interview. And you ask any medical student, the third Friday of March is on every medical student's calendar. That's called match day. How residency is picked is basically you interview at these programs, you get a chance to interview them and they interview you, and then when you come back home, you generate a list of your programs that you want to go to from your number one choice down to your number 10 choice or how many programs you interviewed at. On the other end, the residency program is doing the exact same thing. They're ranking their interviewees from number one to X number, and a computer ultimately matches those two lists together as best as possible until you get the third Friday in March where the match results are disclosed. And that's where it's a big day. Most people remember Christmas, most people remember Easter. You know, you ask medical students, they don't know any of those holidays. They know when match day is because that's what's going to tell you how you're going to proceed to move forward in your career. Now, residency programs vary in length of time between 3 to 7 years, depending on which medical specialty you picked. General internal medicine is 3 years long. General surgery, I did five, it's generally 5 years. I did a year of research, so I was considered 5+1. I did trauma research and ultimately cancer research for my residency. And like I said, it's a paid position. You are truly a professional student now. And whereas in medical school and undergraduate school, you didn't get paid a dime. So I got a question here. I'm going to read it to you. Does it matter where you complete your medical residency? Not exactly, because they are all accredited programs that will get you the MD, DO degree, which allows you to sit for your boards. So these are very stringent rules of vetting an individual to be board eligible, and every residency who are accredited has that opportunity to train you. They've met all the criteria to train you to sit for your board. So as long as you complete that residency in good standing, then you're allowed to practice the medicine or subspecialty that you set out to learn. All right. So wait, let me see. There's another question. Let me just take a quick look. The question, how do you study for long hours and study when you do not feel motivated? And that's, for me, I'm going to answer again, a lot of these questions you're going to ask, I'm going to answer based on how I handled your question. And in medical school, I was in study groups. I generated friends who I still have the same friends now. You know, you definitely generate lifelong friends in both medical school and residency because there's a camaraderie that you develop in such hostile environments that you take on for the rest of your life. And so, in terms of motivation, you find people in study groups that motivate you, that challenge you, that keep pushing you along. Um, and the long hours, it's generally experience. You know, back when I trained, they always told you the long hours pay off because that's how many hours you have to spend when you truly practice. You know, I'm going to get a little bit more into those work hours in the next bullet because that has changed significantly. I know that because when I was a resident, that's kind of when they were making the transition from work hour restrictions. So definitely that was recognized that long hours may be counterproductive. There might be a point of diminishing returns of experience versus ability to process, meaning that if you work so hard, yes, you're getting a lot of experience if you're working 100 hours a week, but then your general fatigue might start to impede your ability to retain what you learned or even make medical errors. So, yes, there are long hours, and I know that a week has 168 hours in it. The reason why I know is because when I did residency, there was no work hour restrictions, meaning that you truly were a resident in the hospital, meaning that you lived in the hospital. And yes, you definitely gain a lot of experience through the years. A lot of insight and a lot of research has been done in terms of the true benefit of extended hours to a point that they've instituted work hour restrictions in the year 2008, limiting resident hours to 80 hours a week in a 4-week period, meaning that they wanted to limit medical errors. They thought that, sleep deprivation and tiredness obviously will affect your decision making. And they thought that was very counterintuitive of what they were trying to achieve. Um, Another question here: why did you choose to major in medicine? Um, well, eh, it's a great question. In high school, I had a variety of influences, but the biggest influence to me, just like you, is maybe your parents. A lot of my parents' relatives are in the healthcare field. That might have motivated me. Some people will find other ways of motivation, whether they knew a close friend, a first degree relative who was very sick and saw how medicine helped that individual might motivate you. So your resource and where you find this inspiration to pursue medicine comes in a very personable place. There's no written rule what you should or should not do. You should definitely pursue it with the intent of having passion and dedication to whatever field. It doesn't have to be even medicine, engineering, accounting. I tell my kids, I don't really care what you do, but do it well. Do 110% of whatever you do. You could be a musician, you could be an opera singer, you could be a physician. Just whatever you choose, be dedicated to it and know that you're going to enjoy it and be passionate about it. Um, So yeah, and the last bullet point in this slide, I talked about completion of accredited residency makes you board eligible. So those 155 programs I had mentioned before are all accredited residency, very meticulous accreditation. There's a federal agency through Medicare that governs these accreditations. So it's definitely highly regulated. Just no different in the rest of the world. The whole world there's a royal accreditation in England. There's a royal accreditation in Australia. So every country has a very stringent rules of what allows you to practice medicine. So for me specifically, why surgery? So I already chose the medical field because of inspiration from my family members. Why specifically surgery? Uh, I think the first thing I could think of was that it was a challenge. You know, I like taking on challenges, and I felt that surgery could have been an ultimate challenge within the medical field. Um, Not to take anything away from other medical specialties, well, general internal medicine, psychology, pathology. You know, I just felt that surgery will offer me the most challenge, very hands-on and procedural, which is what I am. If I wasn't a surgeon, I could have been some level of an engineer. So I like to be hands-on. I still do a lot of do-it-yourself projects at my house. In reality, what I do, I'm a plumber. You know, I'm a plumber for the body. So it's definitely more of a hands-on kind of individual rather than maybe radiology. You know, radiology not really hands-on. You're reading films, so that's probably why I chose surgery over that. I like problem solving. There's always a constant puzzle in front of you. Every patient is a new puzzle. Don't think, you know, just because the pathology is the same in one patient versus the next, that the answer is the same. It's going to be very different. You got to individualize your treatment plans, and that's a constant problem solving environment. And then instant results and gratification. I want to explain that a little bit because what surgeons do is we take care of things and you can see the result pretty much instantly after you've taken care of it. If the battery is out in your remote control, you do a procedure to take out the battery, replace it. There you go. It's fixed. Um, Changing a tire, flat tire, you take out the flat tire, you get your spare tire, you do the procedure to replace that tire, done. You get instant gratification, instant results. Versus more chronic diseases, which let's say an internal medicine doctor will handle, is diabetes. There's no cure for diabetes, so it's kind of a type of pathology that you're constantly treating, and that was something that I didn't really have more of an interest in. I like to treat things and see instant results. And again, everyone's very different in terms of how they view uh, results. Now, fellowship training. Fellowship training, as I had mentioned before, you go through a process of residency training. You could go into general internal medicine. You could go into general surgery. Fellowship training means you subspecialize. I subspecialize into intestinal surgery and laparoscopic, or what's called minimal invasive surgery. So basically, I play video games all day. I play video games inside someone's body though, and where the goal of the game is to remove a segment of the colon or bowels, whether it's a tumor, a cancer, or an infection, and that's what my specific fellowship training has provided me. But fellowship training is just like residency, but just all over again. So, but honed in on a more specific discipline. Now, I was asked to kind of delineate what would create a successful candidate. That's a very difficult question to ask because, you know, there's going to be of multiple factors that make someone successful in medicine, and it's hard to really just come up with a list. I just want to take a moment for another question here. What are the similarities between history and medical study? Or does the hobby of history help you pursue a medical career? Thank you for that question because I just have different interests in which I encourage all of you to not ignore your other interest. Like I said, medicine, you have to be very focused and very persistent and persevere to get through all that training. But don't forget about other interests that you may have, and still continue to foster that as you go along. And at some point, there is some ability to blend the two together, such as I'm doing here in this presentation. I tried to make this presentation have some background or backbone of what a medical career is like, but I sprinkled along some level of historical facts and quotes that don't really didn't have a medical basis, but I related to it because I think it's pertinent. And yeah, so I do see some ability of overlap. That becomes more your own personal interpretation of what you read and interpret history. But like I said, it's just a matter of continuing other interests that you may have. Don't ignore it. If you like computer programming, you could be a doctor and be a computer programmer. You could, if you like accounting or numbers, uh, or finance. Some people like to go into stock investing. There's no reason why you couldn't be a doctor and invest in stocks and be knowledgeable in that too as a hobby and other careers, even sports. And like I said, don't ignore other interests. So a successful candidate, just going through this bullet points includes being a focused individual. You are all focused. I already know that you're here on a Friday afternoon. You're focused. Communication. I always tell my kids, you could be the world's smartest medical student, but no one will ever know if you can't communicate that knowledge. So communication skills is very important. Another question: what kind of problems will come up with this major? What kind of problems? Problem regarding what kind of problems will come up with this major? You mean pre-med major, or I'm not quite clear about the question. If you want to restate, I'm just going to continue my presentation. But what kind of problems come up with this medical major, M- major in medical? Got it. Okay, so medicine is not really a major. Or there's pre-med, right? They call that pre-medicine major. That's a liberal arts major. I chose not to do a pre-med major because then you are to some degree not forced, but then you do limit your focus as to applying to medical school. So what I did was I majored in biology and physiology, which if I decide not to go to medical school, I could still go into research. Particularly, I was doing a lot of cardiovascular research in undergraduate. I actually got accepted to Penn and University of Virginia for cardiovascular PhD. At the same time, I applied. So I did apply for PhD programs and medical schools at the same time, um, and it allowed me more flexibility. So I was able to choose. I declined the University of Pennsylvania PhD program. I just declined the University of Virginia PhD program in cardiovascular research and decided to go to medical school. So that was kind of my focus of why I didn't go into pre-med. If you're in pre-med, there's no reason why you couldn't pursue other interests with a pre-med degree, but it is a liberal arts degree. Um, so I think hopefully I answered your question. I'm not sure if that's what you're alluding to in terms of a problem. There is really no problem in going to a medical major. I just chose physiology for that reason. Okay. So moving on to what makes a successful candidate, teamwork, very important right from the beginning, even in undergraduate, go into study groups. College courses are difficult, and you probably know that from some of the AP courses you're taking that, uh, being in study groups, being supportive of each other, encouraging each other, challenging each other really helps elevate every individual in that group. And I think that will go on into undergraduate, medical school, residency, fellowship, and even in practice. I confide in some of my colleagues a lot. Still, I ask them questions. I curbside them in terms of what their thoughts are. I'm in a practice with two other partners. They are more senior than me, so that's an advantage because they have much more experience, and therefore, if there's any unique problems I encounter, I can ask them. But believe it or not, they ask me too. It's like I said, it's a lifelong learning where you need to be able to interact with others and still form this teamwork approach to solving problems. But with that said, there is always an ability to work independent as well. So it's very important to be able to, if you didn't have the resources around you at that moment, still be fully functional and competent to make the right decisions, even if you don't have the exact resources. You don't have that lifeline, that what's that game show that where you can call a friend, $1 million. If someone can chat in here what that is, yeah, if you don't have that lifeline to help you, you can still give a reasonable answer, or give a very competent result. Problem solving, like I said, very important. It's important to know how to navigate things when they're not in the situation you were taught. Meaning that if you were taught to add 2 plus 2 a certain way, if I mixed up those numbers and told you a different way to add 2 plus 2, it's still the right answer, but that ability, problem solving and flexibility is important. Compassionate, definitely, without saying, doctors tend to be empathetic, sympathetic, compassionate, because these are sick patients who are relying on you and putting full trust in you to take care of them, and that is a very important relationship. Um, and dedication, that's without saying as well. Just the fact that, like I said, you're here on a Friday afternoon shows some level of dedication to a career that you are maybe interested in, and that dedication continues to escalate as you go into your training. Another quote: "Courage is not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it." This is from Nelson Mandela, former president of South Africa. And what he's referring to is that having courage doesn't mean you don't have fear. You do have fear, but you can still function despite having the fear. And that's very important. And the reason why I put this quote out is because that's what I remember when I first started my practice. Um, Remember, I was a professional student for almost 20 years. You know, 4 years of undergraduate, 4 years of medical school, 6 years of residency, 1 year of fellowship, and now I'm actually board certified, licensed, and now people are giving me permission to do surgery on them. That takes a lot of courage to be that first time during your first surgery. It takes a lot of courage and confidence and patience and focus to know that you'll be successful. And that's what I'm referring to. And you're going to be facing that with every patient. At least I do. That if they're trusting me with their healthcare, that's a lot of pressure that takes courage to succeed in. And therefore, I remember that quote a lot, that it's okay to be afraid to do a case, but you guys still perform at your top level despite that fear. Another question here. Do these quotations motivate you in your studies? I do sometimes rely on them to kind of reset my thoughts. When you get frustrated, when sometimes I feel some level of despair that, oh man, I can't answer that. Why can't I get the answer to this problem? Let's say these quotes, I think, help me refocus. And I still use these quotes. You could ask my two boys. It's the same quotes I use on them to refocus them in middle school and in elementary school. So it definitely is can be translated in multiple ways in multiple situations. Um, so after training, yes, I got my board certification in general surgery and my subspecialty in colorectal surgery. I took a specific focus in what's called minimal invasive laparoscopic surgery. So I can remove large organs through a 2-inch incision. Private practice, that's an interesting kind of view now. Private practice in South Jersey for the past 15 years. Yes, I own my own business. I am my own boss. A lot of times you are employed by healthcare systems, like, Temple Healthcare, Jefferson Healthcare, Penn Healthcare. They employ physicians. I am not an employed physician. Uh, Kind of like I own my own shop, my own. I'm part owner and business partner in what's called Advocare. It's a LLC, stands for Limited Liability Corporation. So that's something we developed as an entity to maintain an independence. The other opportunity is what's called academic practice. So that's the fork in the road. You want to either go private or academic, where you can teach and still practice clinical medicine. I purely practice clinical medicine. I don't have any residents. I don't have any students, and that's why joining NAP and being a NAP board of manager member is an important step for me because it allows me to go back to some of my roots of teaching. I haven't taught any students in 15 years since I was in. I taught some in medical school, and obviously, as I was teaching assistant in undergrad, I enjoyed that very much, and definitely like the opportunity to hear what you have to say, your questions. All these questions were amazing questions. I definitely enjoyed answering them because it makes me reflect again on what truly I'm doing, and I think students keep you honest. Let's put it that way. You could definitely get to a point of habits just because you've been in practice for 15 years. You're doing the same thing. It's nice to see, being a teaching environment, to see if what you're doing for the past 15 years still is appropriate. And that's what teaching programs offer you, is ability to check yourself. So that brings me back to the first slide and kind of my reflection of this long journey that I shared with you, titling it There and Back. And a final quote from a Chinese philosopher, Lao Tzu, regarding a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. Uh, and I think what you will face is that, regardless of what my talk has said about how long the training is, how long how many quizzes, tests there are, that's, in your future, it all starts with the first step. You take it day by day, you focus, and I think next thing you know, 15 years later in practice, 30 years later from starting undergraduate, you have an opportunity to reflect and look back at your accomplishments. That's the end of my talk, and I appreciate the questions throughout the talk. I definitely open it up for more discussions and additional insight. Any comments?
So thank you, doctor, for all the information and like sharing your experience, giving advice to our students. So if anyone has any questions for doctor, you can unmute yourself or just answer in a comment. So also I do have I guess like a question for our students is what's your advice for high schoolers who are interested in the medical field? And like as in like what they can start right now to explore their interest, especially during pandemic when like everything's limited or like programs are not open.
So in terms of in high school level, you're
Yes, high
saying,
school level.
there's definitely a lot of online resources. I know what some of my kids do out school. It's an online coursework, CTY. They're enrolled in the Hopkins online courses for enrichment. You could definitely explore some science-based programs, in that platform. Uh, Juniors and seniors, I think there's AP programs that definitely allow you to um, uh, elevate your resumes and applications. If there's any opportunity for volunteer work, I know a lot of my friends who are program directors. They look at your ability of your extracurricular activity in volunteering, um, your time, whether it's community outreach, food drives, and that sort of activity. um, Communication programs like Model UN, I think is a great platform to be involved in because it allows you to do some critical thinking on subjects and be able to communicate. These are all very important skills, I think, that you could pursue, um, outside of a classroom.
For myself in a way is how did you prep for the MCAT
I'm sorry, say that again, Lena.
that you think that was more emphasized or more looked at on your application when you applied to med school?
Is there a particular thing they emphasize?
Yes, especially like during interviews
Correct. So
that
they
you
definitely
focus more
emphasize
on.
on your activities, your extracurricular activities outside of academics.
Gotcha.
So definitely, whether you're in the jazz band or you're in Model UN, you're in the robotics club. These are all extracurricular activities that they like to see. You could mix in their sports. You can mix in their, chess club kind of stuff. These are all things that, because that ends up, those activities end up not only on your application but on your personal statement potentially, and that's a topic of conversation they love to talk about. They read your personal statement, they see you have an interest in travel, do you have an interest in cooking. They will talk to you about that more so than the the MCAT score. It's it or the yeah, the MCAT scores. They have that already as a first um way of determining who their candidates are they want to interview. Once you get to the interview level, they're really talking about you, and what your other interests. And if your only other thing you can talk about is biology, I think that might be, you could be very proficient in biology. You may know the whole anatomy already by senior year. That's not what they're going for when trying to look for candidates.
Gotcha. And then also how did you like prep for the MCAT?
I took the Kaplan review course. I don't know if
Oh,
that I don't know
you
if that's
had
still
books.
around. Is that is that still around?
Yes,
It
yes,
is.
yes.
Oh,
I
okay.
always get their emails about classes, like some
Yes.
kind of
I took
discount.
I do encourage you, and every level board exam, take a
Mm,
review course. So MCAT, you take a review course. There is a licensing, a USMLE review board course.
mm.
Um, but that's an adjunct. That don't rely purely on the board review. That's an adjunct to your own study habits and group study habits. Like I said, I think I'm very much a proponent of group studying, being surrounding yourself with success, meaning that you want to surround yourself with other students who have the same outlook as you, the same drive for success. If you surround yourself with that group, you all of you will elevate together.
Yes, I feel like that's really right now because of COVID. It's the environment has definitely changed, especially like studying habit and everything. But yeah, and then another question is like if you can go back in time and if you had to take a gap year to spend before going to med school, what would you do?
I'm sorry, say that again. On
Uh,
to
so if you go back in time and then you had to take like a gap year to spend before going to med school, what would you do?
how to adapt to medical school.
If you have a gap year to spend, like a gap year before going into med school,
Oh, a gap year before
yes.
medical school.
If you have one,
Um,
how would you spend it?
if I had a gap year, I would have traveled if I did a gap year. And again, this is an answer pre-COVID, post-COVID. It doesn't, I like to travel, and I'm the type of person who rarely goes to the same place twice. meaning that it must be a great beach for me to go back to that same beach vacation, because there's so many things in this world that is amazing and that you could appreciate. And remember, I have a history background, so I kind of like visiting other cultures. I backpacked through Europe twice. I backpacked through South America. Um, and I definitely did the touristy thing, but also I integrated with people. I tried to learn their language. I made it a point with any country I visit to at least be cordial in that language, at least to be able to say hello, thank you, goodbye. Um, I didn't want to be known as the American who always expects everyone to speak English. Let's put it that way. So I definitely like to take appreciation of other cultures. So if I had a gap year, which I wish I did, I would definitely like to travel, because once you have family, it is well beyond what your conversations are, and but things change a little bit. So, but all for good. There are other couple questions here. Um, does the score of the AP course or the experience stay in a certain AP course is important to college applications? All these courses, AP courses, are important to succeed in. I qualified for AP biology and AP physics. I didn't take them up. I retook AP. I took physics and biology again in college because I felt that if I was going to major in science or biology, I didn't want to skip biology in my freshman year for fear that I may forget its application in other disciplines such as biochemistry, organic chemistry, that kind of stuff. So I did qualify for AP credits, but I didn't take advantage of any of them. I took it just as part of my resume, but I I did not waive my college course because I got AP credits. Another question: how do you make good friends when the environment is really competitive? Great question. And I think ultimately you will find those individuals who find an ability to still succeed and find honor and joy in competitor success as well. It's just a friendly competition. I mean, no different than sports. You see these very focused football players, football teams, baseball players. Right now, the French Open is there, and I gotta say, rank 1 and 2 are probably the best friends outside the tennis court, but they're respectfully competitors on the tennis court. So there is an opportunity to be able to do that. It's not mutually exclusive of each other, being friends and being competitors. Believe it or not, you just have to find those people. Another question: what can we do right now in high school to prepare? For medical school, I think Lena and I had just discussed that. I think trying to increase your overall interest in application. Don't go too science heavy. Um, a lot of times their extracurricular work is just as important. If you play the violin, and again, I'm not telling you you're a junior in high school now, oh man, he told me I have to learn the violin in the next 12 months. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that be sure you have other interests that you can bring to the table, bring to an application, bring to an interview. Don't just they know you're good in science, they know you're good in biology. Bring up a topic that they may not know. Oh, you love cooking. You know the difference between a souffle and a molten chocolate cake. Yeah, that's these are interests that program directors like to see broadened interest, both in a college level, medical school level. I think, remember, they're interviewing thousands of people. There's only so many biology questions you can ask someone to see if they're a competent applicant, right? They really want to see functioning individuals who really integrate well, because they're making a team themselves. When these colleges are accepting people, they think it's someone who would succeed in their institution. So they're making their own teams and seeing how these individuals can work with each other to be successful, and that is the same in medical school. I think some of the interest, broad interest, plays a big role.
Oh, maybe I guess this will be probably the last questions.
Mm,
It's kind of my own personal question as well.
sure.
Is how do you view like volunteer experience in other countries, both paid and non-paid? Paid as in like, if you pay to be a part of a program for to bring you to abroad to like do a volunteer service, and versus non-pay as in like you contact probably like the volunteer service department, I guess, of like a hospital or a
Got it.
clinic of another country. Like how do you view that? Because I've seen like videos online that say like it's better to get like volunteer experience that you don't have to pay to go abroad versus like
I don't think it would make a difference if you have an opportunity to volunteer. I think it's a very important aspect of your application. I volunteered as um, a courier at the ER at my local hospital, right? So what I did was I couriered, and I'm talking about this is before computer, electronic, lab work and electronic medical records. So I had to courier papers, folders, charts from one department to another, right? That allowed me to show some level of, altruism and my time that I donate in the effort to gain more experience in the medical field. What I got out of that is that I was in the ER, so I was a courier in the ER. So I got some exposure to ER physicians. I got exposure to some ER nurses who showed me procedures. I was not in any capacity to be able to perform any procedures because I was a student. I was a high school student, and so I volunteered at the local hospital. My high school did some food drives. I volunteered for those food drives. So any level of volunteer work, and that's in the high school level. When you get up to, let's say, undergraduate level, if there's an ability to study abroad or to take on a volunteering position in an outside the country, I would jump on that. Like I said, I like traveling. I like learning other cultures. If it's a culture that is new to me, I would definitely be on board with that type of volunteer work, and and it definitely looks good on an application. There are a couple of other online questions here. Uh, what can we do right now in high school to prepare in the medical field? Will it lead to the subject of engineering? Will it lead to um, the answer to the question, I believe what you're trying to ask is what you can do to high school to prepare. That's one part of your question. The second part, can medical field lead to engineering? It absolutely can, because I have a colleague, a friend who is a biomedical engineer. So he's combined his medical knowledge with robotic engineering. And when these are two very difficult disciplines, and they're very up and coming. In fact, I have some interest in that. With minimal invasive surgery, there's an ability to perform robotic surgery. So Penn has a very big program in that in biomedical engineering, where they take a lot of the clinical physicians and merge them together with the desktop engineers, whether they're mechanical engineers, electrical engineers, to try and develop robotics, or what's called haptotechnology. Imagine a robot is able to feel how soft something is and translate that back to to you. That's actually an engineering field with a medical background.
okay, so I guess that was the last question.
Hmm.
But doctor, thank you again for being with us here today. And if you guys have any question, feel free to contact him. And if you have any questions regarding like PCDC events or programs, feel free to contact Rosalie and Siljo. But yeah, thank you so much for spending Friday
Thank
afternoon
you
with
so
us, doctor.
much.
Thank you, and thank you everyone for attending too.
Thank you for having me. I enjoyed it. I definitely would like to do this again. And if you would have me, and if you need to reach out to me, I think you could go either through, uh, uh, someone in your program can reach out to NAP, which is my
Yes.
program, and they could definitely contact me.
Gotcha. But yeah, thank you so much again.
All right.
And hope
Take care.
everyone
Be
have
well,
a
guys.
wonderful
Be
weekend.
safe. Okay.
Thank you.
Take care.
You too.